When we all shut down, it was for the purpose of safety for everybody. Everything was shut down. But now as things are coming back on, we've got things like 50 people is the maximum we can have. But a restaurant or a store, they just have to be at 50% of their fire code. Couples can go to a restaurant together, but you can't come to church together. Keep a listing of congregants who were present for the services. But you can go to a restaurant and you don't have to give your name. You can go to Costco and you don't have to give your name. That's not okay. Hey Victory family, welcome to your update for this week. It's not only for this week, but for this season. We are shifting. As we've been walking through this COVID thing, we are moving from one season in our province to another, being open for business again to certain measures and certain degrees. And so a lot of you have been asking what that means for the church. And I just wanted to take a time to explain our position on it, where I see it in the Word. There's a little bit more detail about that in our Tuesday night Bible study from this week, so we're going to make sure that you have access to that as well. Get in and find out what God is saying about the season, but then His wisdom translates into what happens in the natural realm, and we want to interpret properly. And I want you to know, like, this is a big deal for us, how we navigate this season. We want to be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves, right? We want to go as far as God wants us to go, but no further. We want to know where the boundary lines are and fully fill the boundary lines. And so just to give you a bit of a background on where we've come from, the decisions that we've made, I know some people were like, super frustrated that we closed at all, and why would we close, and why would the church not just be open and push through this sort of thing. There's a few reasons for that. One of the main ones was because this wasn't a targeted thing at churches. So when all industry shuts down, all business shuts down, it's a general humanity thing. And it's for the purpose of safety. It's for the purpose of our well-being. That's something that we can honor. We can honor the governing authorities in that. We want to be wise. We want to do what is right in protecting the health and safety of people as well. If it was targeted just at churches, we would have had a different response. One of the things that was really clear, this is right off the website, it said restrictions on gatherings are now legally enforceable and subject to fines. So what that meant was that for this season, if people gathered together, not only could we individually be fined, so say 200 people showed up, there could be $200,000 in fines that go out in one day, which really isn't honoring the Lord in any measure anyway. More importantly, I think the big deal is that the church is not contained within a building. And so when the word talks about in Acts that God is not a God who lives in a temple made of hands, He lives in us. And so we have still been able to do church. But this idea of the $1,000 per person penalty that has been issued to different people, that's not good stewardship of God's money either. And we know that God actually wants us to honor the authorities, but we also have to do His business. So our reason in obeying the laws of the land, Romans 13, 1-7, and I'm just going to read it for you here. This is pretty clear, and especially when the leaders are governing in a righteous manner. There was elements of this that were about caring for people, and the explanations that were given were about caring for people. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore, you must be subject, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for they are God's ministers attending continually to this very thing. Render therefore to all their due, taxes to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. And so in our case, in our local constituency, our MLAs are born-again believers who are very aware of the value of the church, the purpose of the church, and they were walking in agreement with what has been happening provincially. So we did not feel like the laws of man were contrary to the laws of God. I know there is the scripture, Hebrews 10:25, talks about do not forsake the gathering of yourselves together. But we have learned that in our moment in history, gathering together can be done in many different ways. So it doesn't necessarily mean we have to physically come and be in the same building, but we do need to gather. We need to connect. And so we have found ways tying in online and getting together one-on-one. We have been doing the gathering together. And so we've actually increased our online presence. We've added a third service. We've been doing the online Bible studies. Pastor Jason's been doing kids crafting. Melody's been doing the daily updates, devotionals with her kids. There's just been a really constant online presence. We have maintained an open office. So for people that were very frustrated that we're not an essential service, we actually went through the channels to make sure that we were considered an essential service, that we were deemed an essential service, and have acted accordingly. So the office has never been closed. We are open for counseling, we're open for prayer, we're open for practical ministries, and we have maintained that throughout this. So the church has still been open in that way. We have been doing one-on-one deliveries. We've been meeting the needs of people in just practical ways, dropping off, groceries or meals or just encouragement things, cards, just happy deliveries, the crafting things for the kids. We've moved into a place of meeting the needs in a totally different way. Rather than waiting for people to come to us, the church has gone out, which is a different definition of wide open. Email is open for prayer, so wideopen@victorygp.com has been open for people to just send in prayer requests. We've been putting that out there publicly. We also have a phone line that is available from, I think it's noon till 9 p.m. every single day for people to call in if they just need prayer 7 days a week. So that's something that we didn't have before. So that's an increase in what's been happening. We also have opened up and facilitated a food pantry in the church. So we have this place in the building where there's supplies for people who just need practical help. They just need groceries. There's an answer for that, as well as financially just being able to sow into different people's lives that are needing help. So the needs have been met on a very practical level, which is huge. This is not a church that has been shut down by governmental legislation. We have been functioning, and in fact, we're more open than ever. You guys have been serving one another in incredible ways. The online stuff, what we're seeing specifically on the Facebook family group, the community that has been formed in this, it's more open than ever. You guys have been phoning and texting and baking and delivering and dropping off cards. And, I've talked to people who are getting just contacted all the time. People are like, man, our church is awesome. This is exciting. The church is not closed. You've helped people move in the middle of this season and move furniture and sell things and get stuff out there. You've shared with one another. I've seen things like bicycles and coat hanger things and all kinds of stuff that just sharing around what you have and nobody is doing without, which is incredible. You have volunteered at the church. We've got people who are coming in just to wipe down the church and bleach everything and make sure it's all clean and sanitary so that we can keep going. That's huge. This is people who have other day jobs, but in this season, instead of just sitting home and wallowing, people volunteering at the church in the yard and helping out, cleaning up stuff, building things. There's been people praying over the city, doing the prayer walks and prayer drives. And every neighborhood in our city and the surrounding communities have been covered with prayer. I don't think it's an accident that Grand Prairie has 0 cases of COVID-19. There's an answer to prayer that is in action. We've had 3 cases come and be resolved. You have picked up garbage in your communities. You are out there. The church is active and doing things. You have been offering love and hope to your neighbors. I see posts where people are just available to talk to people and to share and to encourage, which is an incredible thing. And you've been faithful financially. Our church giving has been just constant, even though there's so many people that are out of work right now. God has just continued to bless, so the church has been able to continue to function. So I just want to say all of that to say the church has not been stopped. We have been mobilized, and where we've been waiting for a season to know what to do and how to get outside the 4 walls, we are in it, and the church is moving and active and finding new and creative ways to minister to people, which is huge. This is a gift to us, and so we have been functioning as an essential service. We have just not been gathering as a group. And so this is the big part that I want to begin to talk about. Some people are struggling with the idea of like, we just need to get together. We just need to get everybody in the same place together. And how far are we going to push that? How far are we willing to go with it? So I want to just give you the breakdown of what our government regulations are at present for places of worship. One of the things that's a big deal, I believe, is the understanding that we can be a lifeline to the community. We can be a church without gathering, but gathering definitely takes it to the next level. So we want to make sure that we're faithful in this, that we don't stop for a second, that we actually advance in this season, but we look at the gathering properly. What is God's view on this? And I don't think he views gathering as something worth compromising for. What we've got here is this handy dandy little guidance sheet for the places of worship in Alberta. And I'm going to put on my glasses because it's teeny tiny writing. But there are some things in here that I believe are deal breakers. So we can begin to start gathering again up to 50 people, which is very, very little. We'd have to do a ton of services to accommodate everybody. But what I am struggling with is that when we all shut down, it was for the purpose of safety for everybody. So really almost everything was shut down. But now as things are coming back on, we've got things like stores that are open and restaurants that are open. Restaurants are open to 50% capacity. They just need to have 2 meters of distance between each table group. There can be 6 people at a table, basic guidelines of, sanitary concerns, things like that. So let me just give you a couple things that are issues for me. For churches, it says that we can offer multiple services and opportunities to worship, to reduce the attendance to 50 people or 1/3 of the normal worship attendance, whichever is smaller and whichever ensures physical distancing will be maintained. So what that means is even though our building capacity is over 600 and our people group, we should be able to actually host 200 according to these guidelines, but it's going to be 50 people because whichever number is less. So 50 people is the maximum we can have, but a restaurant or a store can have more than that. So they just have to be at 50% of their fire code. Religious leaders should support COVID-19 prevention activities, procedures, and education. So it's not just telling me what to do, it's telling me what to believe. I have to support the activities, procedures, and education. That is not my mandate as a pastor, and that's not the mandate of the church. That's the mandate of the health department, not mine. Physical distancing must be maintained between people who are not from the same household at all times, 2 meters apart. So people can go to a restaurant, couples can go to a restaurant together, but you can't come to church together. You have to stay apart. That's not really okay. It says that infants and children should remain with their parents or guardians at all times. Nursery and children's church is not permitted, but daycares are open. So your children can go to other people for care, but children's church and nursery is not permitted. It's not even, they're telling us what we can and cannot do with our children in this house. That's a bit of a problem for me. It says just little things like organizations should maintain a single point of entry and a separate point of exit. Restaurants and stores don't have to have the same thing. Some of the more specific concerns for me are under the area of singing. Congregational singing is a high-risk activity and is not allowed. Infected people can transmit the virus through their saliva, respiratory droplets while singing. Consider soloist music or piano guitar offertories as an alternative. And then it says, while there is no evidence of exactly where a safe distance would be to prevent transmission from someone singing, if 1 or 2 people are singing as part of a live streamed or recorded service, factors that would reduce the risk would be having singers face away from each other. So if we have 1 or 2 people on the stage actually leading worship, but not to anybody who would be in the room, they could have plexiglass barriers that separate them from one another. And we need to ensure that there are no individuals with chronic medical conditions or those over 65 who are present. So this is a big deal to me because this is where it goes contrary to the Word of God. We are supposed to honor our elders. We treat them with respect. We treat them with dignity. So if we tell them that they cannot be part of our services because they're over 65 and they're at risk, it's dishonoring their ability to choose, their right to decide for themselves if they want to be found in the house of God or not. They're not going to be rejected from a restaurant or rejected from a grocery store. That's their choice if they choose to assume that risk. But we are not supposed to have them present. Children, families can bring their kids here, but they have to stay right with them. They can drop them off at a daycare. They can take them to a restaurant. They can take them to a grocery store, but they can't have them around anybody else at church. So people with chronic medical conditions, but I can't get up and preach about a God who heals. And we tell everybody, if you're sick, you can't come, you can't be here. I mean, I understand that we're not wanting to spread COVID, but essentially this just says anybody who has medical conditions. One of the biggest concerns is this support for public health. It says to enable management cases through contract chasing and follow-up, keep a listing of congregants who were present for the services. They want us to actually keep track of anybody who would come into this building, and it's supposed to be for the sake of, watching the spread, but really your freedom to come and go, to your freedom to worship is being documented and followed. But you can go to a restaurant, you don't have to give your name. You can go to a grocery store and you don't have to give your name. You can go to Costco and you don't have to give your name. So we're not going to control things like that. And so here's the thing. When Moses was leading the people of Israel out of Egypt, and they came before Pharaoh, and after all the hardening of heart and the plagues and the whatever, and Pharaoh said, yeah, you can go, but you just need to leave all your livestock behind. And basically he wanted to control their return. He wanted to control their coming and going. And Moses said, no, we won't go and leave a single hoof behind. We won't go until we all go. And so that's where we're standing kind of as a church right now. We really will not assemble until we can assemble and have children come and have seniors come, and we can come with freedom and not have to document every single person that's here, where we can sing and worship our God like he commands us to and instructs us to. If you were to gather here under these conditions, you would have to sit in your people group, in your family, 2 meters apart from anybody else. You would come in, you would sanitize, you would sit in your spot. You would not be singing, you would not be communicating, you would just receive something from the stage. Then you would exit out the side door, and we're supposed to encourage you to go straight to your car, not mingle with anybody, and just get out of here. That's not okay. And so I'm encouraging us today. We've been waiting for the time to step up and say something. This is the time. With respect, and I just want to reiterate again, our local provincial officials are awesome people of God. And so please do what you do respectfully, but we need to start writing letters, and we need to start seeing freedom for the church. Not more than what we see in the other sectors of society, but at least equal. This is more constrictive than it should be. And so I just really want to say again, the church is not limited to these four walls. And so the more that we are separated, the more we should grow, the more we should expand. And so one of the things that is recommended is that maybe cohort families can get together, and your kids can play together, and you can basically, what that is you're deciding that this is the other family that I'm partnering with, and we're going to spend time together so that we are not having to abide by the same sorts of distancing issues. I'm just saying maybe it's time to start having home church. Find another family or two, find another couple or two, get together. And so I'm not saying just be defiant or be rude to throw away caution. I am saying that as a church, we will hold out for freedom. We will hold out to be able to come together with love and compassion. Yes, caution. Yes, wisdom. But we want to be able to minister to those that need ministry. We want to be able to welcome our seniors in and show them how loved and cared for they truly are. We want to make sure that people's mental health is bolstered by the love of God, and there's not fear because of everything that's just super boxed in and limited. And so we're going to hold out for God's best. Hopefully that won't be long, but we need to start making our government officials aware that we will absolutely do what is necessary to sanitize things and to do what is right, holding proper boundaries, but we are not going to live under this level of control where we are dictated to what we can and cannot do in this house, what we do and do not say. In this season, we're not dormant, but we're growing and we're flourishing, and the church is expanding. The kingdom of God is on the move. And so better out there than in here, right? So welcome your feedback. Let me know what you think, and Again, we're honoring the authorities as much as we can, but we're not going to compromise and we're not going to bow to the things that God commands us to do. So I love you all. We as a staff and as a leadership team love you. We're praying for you. We're believing God's very best for you and your family. We're declaring his blessing and his favor over you. Health, life, strength. You are the head and not the tail. Above only and not beneath. You are blessed by God. And so live that way, live the light, flourish in him, and trust that he's got your best in mind. Bless you.